In case you're wondering. All right. You are doing great. We are learning Maseches Yoma Daf Nun Zayin tonight. And we're starting toward the bottom of Nun Vav Amud Beis, about 7 lines from the bottom of the 2 dots, where it says, V'hiza mimenu al haparoches keneged aron mibachutz. I'm just going to do a very brief 30-second summary of what we did yesterday, because it will be important for our dialogues tonight. Yesterday, we focused on a seeming hekesh, a comparison between the world of par and the world of seir. We know that the Kohen Gadol would bring the blood of the par and the blood of the seir in the Kodesh HaKodashim, or as the Gemara will refer to it today, lifnai v'lifnim, in the inner sanctum of the Beis HaMikdash, and you'd have to do a special set of hazos, of sprinklings. It would be up 1, down 7 for the par. Then he'd go out and switch to the blood of the seir, and up 1 and down 7. Now here is this little chart here that, I don't know, green ink doesn't really work very well. I'll keep it close. So here is what we know. What's on the screen right now, the 7 downward zrikos for the par, that's a pasuk in Chumash. But we didn't have that number here. We don't have it in Chumash. And we knew that for the seir, the upper zrika, the upper hazah was 1, but we were missing that by par. So what the Gemara basically said yesterday is we can just fill in the gaps. We can just assume that the information was meant to be extrapolated one to the next. So that's just going to be as a brief summary of what we learned yesterday, that the numbers where the arrows start from are the biblical ones and are in the Chumash expressly, and the others are learned from them. So with that as a starting point, we'll be able to learn the first Amud of Gemara here, and let's get started. It says the Gemara, "V'hizami menu ala paroches keneged aron mibachutz." Not only did he do the hazah inside lifnai v'lifnim, but he also did the zrikos mibachutz on the outside, namely not at lifnai v'lifnim, but in the heichal itself. Remember the structure of that whole entire room. You'd enter into the ulam, the antechamber. That door was huge. It was 20 by 40, small room. Then you go into the larger heichal, 40 amos. That's where the mizbeach was, the mizbeach hazahav, and that's where the menorah and the shulchan were. And then you'd go into the Kodesh HaKodashim. So you do the zrikos in the Kodesh HaKodashim, and then also here mibachutz in the heichal. How do we know that this is true? Where do we learn this from? Tanu Rabbanan. The rabbi said us, "V'chein ya'aseh le'ohel moed." You should also do this, in quotes. You should also do this in the ohel moed. So what is this talking about? Ma Talmud lomar. Answers the Gemara, 5 lines from the bottom, Nun Vav Amud Beis, kishem shemazeh lifnai v'lifnim. Just like we would do the sprinklings inside the lifnai v'lifnim, where the aron should be, so too kach mazeh behechal. One should also do the sprinklings in the heichal outside of the Kodesh HaKodashim. Ma lifnai lifnim achas lemala v'sheva lemata midam hapar. Just like in the Kodesh HaKodashim lifnai v'lifnim, 1 up, 7 down with the par. The same would be true outside of that room and in the general heichal, in that larger room. And as well, just like inside the Kodesh HaKodashim, one would do this, the 7 zrikos, 1 up, 7 down for the seir. So therefore, he do the same exact sprinklings inside the Kodesh HaKodashim and then outside. And then the Brisa continues, it's really the rest of the same pasuk. So the Brisa continues, Hashocheni tam besoch tum osam, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu dwells with us even when we are tamei, Baruch Hashem. And then the bottom line of the Gemara, drasha on that pasuk, what does that mean that Hashem is with us even when we're tamei? Afilu b'shas she'im tamei and shechina imayim, that even when we're tamei, it's not much of a drasha. It's kind of like an explanation of it's not like, we're not changing much, right? It doesn't seem like there needs to be a lot of commentary. But now we'll understand why HaKadosh Baruch Hu put that pasuk in Chumash. Amar leha hu mina the Reb Chanina. Last few words on Nun Vav Amud Beis. There was an apikores who, or a tzeduki, who was speaking to Reb Chanina, and we're on the top of Nun Zayin Amud Aleph, and says the Gemara, Hashta, now meaning when you are now in Galus, that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. This is the tzeduki talking. Hashta bari, for sure tmei natun. Now you guys are for sure tamei. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is for sure not with you now. Right, the Tzuki was trying to get a little dig. The Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. And V'shachanti b'socham, I dwell in the Beis HaMikdash. So it's got to be that Hashem is not with you anymore. So Dichsiv, after all, Tum Asa B'shuleha. This is a very strong mashal that's referenced in the Psukim. Then a woman becomes a nida, there is dam, and it's B'shuleha, it's on the hem of the garment. It's clear that she is a nida. So it's clear when we're in Galus that we're not close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Amar Le, Reb Chanina says back to the Tzeduki, nope. You need to look what is inside our scriptures. What does it say there? And he pushes back on the tzduki and says, absolutely not. A Kodesh Baruch Hu doesn't leave us high and dry. Even when things are difficult, there's a distance, absolutely, but it doesn't mean that we are completely left without a Kodesh Baruch Hu. There is still Shechina Shruya Beinehem. So then the Gemara picks up with a question. Now, tonight when we started, I shared with you how we learned the Psukim. We said that we knew that by the par that there were 7 hazos lamata, and we extrapolated from par to seir that there's also 7 hazos lamata by the seir. And then we did the reverse for the upwards zrika, that we knew that there was 1 by seir, and we carried it over to par. So the Gemara says, I don't understand. Wasn't that a hekesh? Wasn't that a comparison? You looked at par and seir and you said, let's crisscross the numbers. That's what we assumed was the case, right? That's what the Gemara said yesterday. But what did we just say on the bottom? That just like you did the zrikos lifnai v'lifnim, you should also do the zrikos in the heichal. So then you're using the same pasuk for 2 different hekeshim. Says the Gemara, 4 lines down, nun zayin amud aleph, v'chi davar halamid behekesh, hozer malamid behekesh. You can't do that. We already used this as a hekesh because we said there was missing information in the psukim. The pasuk only told me that there was 1 upper sprinkling by the seir and nothing by the par. And it told me by the par there were 7 lower sprinklings and nothing by the seir. So we said make a hekesh between them. It's all the same. Everyone needs to bring 1 upper and 1 lower for the par and 1 upper and 1 lower for the seir. That was 1 hekesh. And then on the bottom of Nunvavim and Beis when we started tonight, there was another hekesh that just like lifnai v'lifnim, you're supposed to do the zrikos 1 and 7 for the par and for the seir. So to outside the Kodesh HaKodashim and the Heichal. So the Gemara is, you can't do that? You made an error. So says the Gemara, no, that's not right. When we were talking yesterday, and we said that we learned par from seir and seir from par, that was not a hekesh proper. Hi, heimenu v'davar acher. No, we were just filling in the dots. We had enough information. It's not a hekesh proper. So that's answer number 1. Below have a hekesh. It really isn't a hekesh, and therefore today's Gemara is the hekesh. Yesterday was just the language here is davar halamid. The language is hey menu v'davar acher. I was missing a drop of information. It's not a hekesh proper. Says the Gemara, hanicha. I'll accept your answer only according to the one who agrees with you. Leman amar lo have a hekesh. It's only true according to those who hold that way. For those who say that yesterday's Gemara, that par and seir was not a hekesh, we were just filling in the gaps, fine, say there. But what if you didn't hold that way? But if in fact you hold that yesterday's Gemara was a hekesh, then what do you do with today's Gemara, which is a hekesh? You can't have it both ways. So answer the Gemara, answer number 1, mikomos hu degamre mehadade. We're talking about places. What does that have to do with anything? Why isn't it still a hekesh? So Rashi explains this. Beautiful Rashi here explains this. So we're a couple inches below where we are. Rashi is about a third of the way down in the Rashi. Dibur hamaschil mekomos hu degamre me'adade. Says the Gemara, ein ze hekesh halamed mina hekesh. This is not the hekesh that was learned from yesterday's hekesh. Sheharei behekesh harishon. Yesterday, when we learned what you are calling a hekesh between the par and the seir, that's lamdu behemos zumizu. That was learning from one animal to the next. I had some information in the Chumash about a seir. I brought it over to par. I had some information in the par. I brought it over to a seir. The asa is damoka asher asala dama par. That's great. All of that is talking about animals. Uvehekesh hashteni, but today's hekesh, where we said not only is it lifnai v'lifnim, but it's also in the heichal outside of the kodesh. Then says the Gemara, that's uvehekesh hashteni lo hukashum davar la'achas min behemos. That has nothing to do with the animals. We're not comparing animals anymore. So says the Gemara, there's 2 different things happening here. One, yesterday's Gemara was discussing a hekesh between animals, seir and par. What information transfers between the 2 animals? Today, we're not discussing that. We're not talking about the what, we're talking about the where. And therefore, that's not considered a stira in the Gemara. And that's how the Gemara gives this answer, where 8 lines down, mekomos hu degamre me'adade. And therefore, even according to the one who holds that yesterday's Gemara was a hekesh proper, but yesterday's Gemara was about the what, and today's Gemara is about the where, and that is not considered to be a stira. Or you can give a what we would probably call in our language more of a balabatish answer that, yeah, it's all one hekesh. Yesterday's hekesh is today's hekesh. It's all the same. The outside, namely the heichal, and the bifnim, the kodesh hakodashim, it's all the same thing. So really, we could have included it in yesterday's Gemara, but we didn't. But it's really one and the same. And that ends this first little sugya of ours. And what we learned from here is a very important halacha that we need to, on a Torah level, we need to do the zrikos of the seir and the par, other way around, the par and the seir, one up, seven down, and then the seir, one up, seven down. We need to do that inside by the Aron Bein Habadim, and then outside of the Kodesh and the Heichal, facing the paroches. And that is the start of our Gemara today. And that brings us to a great, beautiful historical Gemara, sad but exciting at the same time. Says the Gemara, Tana, we have a brisa. Shumaze, Eino maze ala paroches ela keneged paroches. Remember, yesterday we said that we didn't sprinkle on the kapores. This is now talking about the paroches. Yesterday was the kapores that was inside the Kodesh. But the paroches is outside, right? We're now in the Heichal facing the paroches. We've turned around, we're facing west, we're facing the paroches. So says the Gemara, you did not sprinkle the blood on the paroches proper. Really? That's for sure not true. Amar Rebbe Lazar b'Rebbe Yossi. He said, Ani re'isiha b'romi. I saw with my own two eyes. No, your Bryce is wrong. You told me that you don't sprinkle on the paroches proper. Yes, you do, because I saw with my own two eyes. And what did I see? I saw that it was the blood of the par and seir of Yom Kippur. Says the Gemara. How do you know what blood it's from? Vidilma, it's not from the par and seir in Yom Kippur. Vidilma, perhaps to par helam davar shel tzibur siri avodah zarahu. Maybe it's from a different set of korbanos. Korbanos where Bezdin, where Sanhedrin gives a psak, and everyone relies on the psak, and the psak ended up being wrong, and everyone in Klal Yisrael did an Isser D'Oraisa. Fine. So then we bring a korban. That korban has sprinkling by the paroches. So it says the Gemara, maybe the blood you're looking at, Rebbe Lazar Rebbe Yossi, maybe the blood you're looking at on the paroches in Rome, maybe that blood is not the blood of Yom Kippur. So he says, no, it has to be third of the way down. Because there was a pattern to them. They were done in order. What is the pattern of Par B'Sot Shem HaKippurim? We learned about this yesterday. My Masav Kimenagdana. We said that you start high and you throw lower and lower and lower 8 times. So he seemingly saw approximately 8 drops of blood in a vertical line going downward. That's exactly what the Kohen Gadol did. Remember that he turned his hand upward, he would do the first flick of blood. He turned his hand the other way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's what he saw. It's not Nami, and there's another Mishnah that he saw another part of the paroches that had a different pattern of blood on it, different blood splatter. That's not Nami, Gabe Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibor. Another story was told, Ki Hai Gavna, very similar story about the Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibor. By Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibor, there is no order in which to sprinkle the blood. Says the Gemara, it says in regard to the Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibor that when the Kohen would do the sprinkling for that particular korban, that he would not do anything special, but it was not on the paroches. But if in fact the blood got on the paroches, no, not a big deal. Amar Rebbe Lazar Rebbe Yossi, nope, that's not true. It was dafka on the paroches. Ani re'isiya b'Romi. I saw them in Rome. I saw. So asks the Gemara the same question. How do you know what the blood pattern was? Maybe the blood that you're looking at now is not from the Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibor. Maybe it really is seir. It's Par and seir from Yom Kippur. He says can't be. This blood splatter had no pattern to it. There was no vertical line of 8 dots of blood. So therefore, I know that if there's blood on the paroches and it's not kisidron, it must be Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibor or the Par of Avodah Zarah. No?
It never happens. Whole more Harios makes it like it's impossible. It's like a more. It's like never happens.
The perfect order?
No, the Par Helam Davar.
It happened once. It must have happened once. Because either that or you have to assume he's either wrong or it happened once. What?
The Hedron has to. The Hedron has to blow them.
They got to get it wrong.
Some of them have to paskin. Shtickle of Avodah Zarah, that is for sure answered right. Is much.
No, that's only by that one thing. But Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibor, that's much more general. That's a general Isser D'Oraisa. There's 2 of them here. If you look at the language, it's Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibor, V'Seirei Avodah Zarah. Those are 2 different korbanos. Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibor, Sanhedrin says it's mutter to eat this food, and you're wrong. And Isser D'Oraisa, everybody ate that. They went to the butcher that day. They all bought this cut of meat, and it was treif mamish. Then they bring Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibor. The Avodah Zarah one is it's much more complicated. I didn't learn the Gemara in Horios. I don't know what you're referring to specifically, but here we're talking about 2 separate korbanos. Either way, Rebbe Lazar Rebbe Yossi, he saw them in Rome. He saw the paroches. That's crazy. He saw the paroches. So that's an unbelievable thing, and that is the end of this little sugya in the Gemara. So now we're going to learn a couple of quick halachic shilas that come up about the blood of the seir that's in one pitcher and the blood of the par, which is in another. We're halfway down. Nun Zayin Mad Aleph, let's continue. Nis'arbu lo damim b'damim. Let's say that the bloods get all mixed up together. So Amar Rava nosein achas lamala v'sheva lamata ve'ola lo lekanu lekan. So what does this mean? This means that the bloods got all mixed up in one cup. So you had your two cups, right? You got the par and you got the seir. And one of the janitors, they just dumped it all in and they stacked it up together, right? So you got all the blood sitting in one. What do you do? So the Gemara says that what you do is Amar Rava no sein achas lamala. You stick your finger in, turn your palm up, 1, and then you stick your finger in 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The ola lo lakanu lakan. With this you will be yotze both for the hazah of the seir and for the hazah of the par. Says the Gemara, Amru akame de Rabbi Yirmiyah. They quoted Rava's answer in front of Rabbi Yirmiyah. Amar bavloi tipshoy. Wow, you out of towners, you chutznikim, you're not getting the message here. That's ridiculous. Mishum de daire ba'aradich hashocha. Just because you live in a dark land, amre shmaitza de mechashkan. You say things that are choshech. You say things that are filled with darkness. Hakayoyv lamala desar mekame mata depar. It's impossible. You're not allowed to bring the hazah of the seir until you've completed the hazah of the par. So they can't both be for par and seir at the same time. Because if you do the hazah 1 and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it counts for both. No, then you did them at the same time. But the seir has to follow the par. The Torah Amra, the kila mechaperes hakodesh, kila dam hapar. Only after you finish the blood of the par, the achar kach kila dam seir. So this is not the right answer. You've got your mixed jug of par blood and seir blood. Okay, I'll just do one set and have in mind for both. No, that means you didn't read the pasuk in Chumash. Wait, come on, Bavel, let's go. So fine. So it says the Gemara, you're right. Ela Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, no sein achas lamala b'sheva lamata l'shem par. You do 1 and 7 for the par, and then the choser you go back and do it again. The no sein achas lamala b'sheva lamata l'shem haseir. Very good. End of question number 1. Next question, we're going to make fun of the Bavelians a little bit more. Nis'arvu lo damim b'damim b'matanos ha'achronos. So the Meforshim explain here that here's what happened. The cups were separated. You're doing good. And this cup right here is the par for this, is the cup for the par. And the Kohen Gadol reaches in, touches the blood, hand up, and does his 1 upwards. Okay, good. Then all of a sudden he looks away, and then someone cup. Now after the first upwards rika, now all the blood is mixed up. So now what do you do? So says the Gemara, Stava Rav Papa Kame de Rava. Rav Papa was talking and learning, and he says to Rava, I have an idea. Lemeimar, here's what I'm going to tell you. No saying Sheva Lemata. You already did the 1 up for the par. So here's what we're going to do now. This is Rav Papa's suggestion. What we should do is no saying Sheva Lemata l'shem par u l'shem sa'ir. We're going to do the 7 downward hazaos, but we're going to do it in mind for both par and sa'ir. So what happened? Tachlis, here's the flow of events. The cups were separated, everything is going fine. Kohen Gadol reaches in and he does the first upward 1 of the par. Good. Then someone mixes the 2 up together, and now the cups are all stacked one on top of the other. He turns around, he's like, uh-oh, what do I do? So Rav Papa's suggestion is it's really time for the lower 7 for the par. I have an idea. I'm going to do the lower 7 for the par, but I'm also going to have in mind to do par and sa'ir. So 1 for par, 7 for both par and seir, and then another upward flick for the seir. So that's his recommendation here. No saying sheva lamata. After you've done the 1 up, you do 7 down l'shem par u l'shem seir, and then b'chozer v'no saying achas l'shem seir. He thinks it's a good suggestion. Says the Gemara, this is really bad news. Amar le Rava. Ad hashta. Up until this point, karulan tipshoy. They've called us fools at this point. But v'hashta tipshoy de tipshoy. We're the worst of the worst. What kind of recommendation is that? To come migmarinon lehuvalog miri. They already told us the din and we didn't listen. They told us that there has to be a seder hadvarim. You have to finish all the hazos of the par, and only then can you go on to the hazos of the seir. The hakayayi mata de seir mikame mala de seir. Here you've inverted them. If the 7 that you're doing are for both par and seir, so then the single upward fleck of blood is late. It had to be before the 7 downwards for the seir. That doesn't work either. The Torah Amra tein lemala ve'achar kach lemata. So what you should really do is not that way. What you should really do is complete everything first. You can't do it the way that you did. And as we turn to the top of Nun Zayin Amud Beis, the Gemara says, Amar Rava, therefore, what you do is nosein sheva lamata l'shem par, v'chozer v'nosein achas lamala, v'sheva lamata l'shem seir. You end up doing the full, whatever it is, it's 8 times 2, it's 16, the full 16 flecks of blood, hazos of blood, and that answers question number 2. Question number 3 says the Gemara, nis arvulo kosos bikosos. The cups are separated, but they're not labeled, and you can't tell the difference. We don't know what blood is which. Could be that this is par and seir. Could be that this is par. I don't know which one it is. So the cups are still sitting here. We just don't know what's what. Okay. What do we do now? So it says the Gemara, very short, but we'll see in a moment. The answer is actually excellent. So nosein, you do a zrika, the chozer v'nosein, and then you do a second set of zrikos. The chozer v'nosein shloshas pamim. So I have here. This could be par or seir. This could be par or seir. I don't know which one. So says the Gemara, here's what you're going to do. Give, give, give. So cup 1 and 2. Cup 1, all right, I'll start with this one. Up 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Put it down. Cup 2, we do the same thing. Up 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we go back to the first cup and we say up 1. Why do we do 3? Because says the Gemara the following. The Gemara doesn't say this. So Rishonim explain this. This is the lumdus of the Gemara. If cup number 1 is really par, which has to go before seir, so then my first set of zrikos and my second set of zrikos, I was yotze midoraisa, I'm done. But if this really was the cup of the seir, which has to be done second, I did this first. So then numbers 2 and 3 are par and seir, which is in the right order. So that's why the Gemara says that if you have the unknown, this could be par or seir, this could be par, so we have to do 3 sets. 1, 2, 3. 7, 8 hazos, 8 hazos, 8 hazos. And that way we check off all of our boxes and we can then make sure that we were yotze our requirement for zrikos. Next question, 4 lines down. Nun Zayin Amud Beis. Says the Gemara, Mixas damim nisarvulo, umixas damim lo nisarvulo. So here, there's 3 cups. Cup number 1 is definitely going to be par. Cup number 2 is definitely seir. And the third cup is a mixture. We don't know what it is. So it says the Gemara, Pshita, the obvious part is like this. Ki yoiv mi vadayin yoiv. If I know that there's a vadai cup, then of course I'm going to give from the vadai cup. If I have par, I know it's par, that's going to go first. If I have seir and I know it's seir, that's going to go second. What do I do with the empty, with the third cup that's a mixture of blood? Miu hanach shirayim, the extra blood, that third cup, what are we going to do with it? Havu, shirayim havu, that extra cup is going to be considered, halachically speaking, extra of the original, and that gets yesod azay, that gets poured on the foundation of the mizbeach. There were little holes by the yesod of the mizbeach where you could pour the blood and it would drip down into the blood system. Very good. O Dilma, says the Gemara, or perhaps, maybe it's not halachically shirayim. Maybe halachically it's what's called duchuyin, which is that it's a 0 in halacha. It's not the halachic extras, it's a 0. It's a garbage, it's a waste. It has no halachic ramifications at all. It's a 0. And then it gets poured into the aqueduct, into the water, which is obviously not the yesod of the mizbech. Namely, it's the garbage can of the Beis HaMikdash in this particular case. So which one is it? We don't know. That's the Gemara's question. When we have 3 cups, 1 is definitely par, 1 is definitely seir, and the last one is mixed. So the par gets the 8 hazos, the seir gets the 8 hazos, and the last is nothing. The last is garbage or not. Is it shirayim or is it techuyin? So Amar Rav Papa says as follows. Afilu lemanda amar kos echad oseh chaveru shirayim. Even according to the opinion that if you have 2 cups of the same blood, let's say I have 2 cups of seir. The animal had a lot of blood. So the shchita was done, and I had these 2 cups sitting under me. The shchita was done on the kohen, and I collect the dama nefesh, and it fills up quickly, and I collect the second dama nefesh, 2 filled with blood. So says the Gemara, afilu leman de amar kos echad oseh chaveru shirayim. If I did my zrikos adam here, and I don't need any more blood, then this cup is now halachically shirayim, even according to the opinion that that's true. So says the Gemara, that's only true if in theory you could use the extra cup. But in our case, we said that third cup was a mixture of blood of par and seir. We don't know what that cup is. It's a mixture. So because in this case, we don't know what it is, or if Papa says, in our case, as posed in the Gemara on the 4th and 5th line, you can't do the zrika with that. So that you cannot use. That gets dumped into the amma. That's garbage in that case. That's shita number 1. Amar later, I disagree with you, Laura Papa. He says, it should be the exact opposite. Even according to the Manda Amar, that if you were to have 2 cups of blood that's dama nefesh, and you did the zrikos adam from the first one, then the remaining cup that was untouched, it's not shirayim, it's garbage, it's dechuyin. Even according to him, that's only true if you ruin it. But if you haven't done anything to it, but where you haven't done anything to that, where that second cup of blood was untouched and there's nothing wrong with it, should be mutter. So maybe we should say the same over here, that our case is really that extra blood, which is a mixture of par and shiur, should be put on the yesod, and it should not be dumped into the amma. It's not garbage, it's halachic shirayim. The Tanya, these two shitas are reflected in a brisa, about a little bit more than a third of the way down on Zayin and Beis. We're going to be going about a third of the way down on Nun Ches Amud Aleph. The brisa writes, Lemala, we have two psukim. Lemala, who omer, above, higher, earlier in the Torah, it says, V'es damo yishpoch. Ulemata omer, V'es kol dama yishpoch, two psukim. So how do we learn these two psukim? So we're going to see in this brisa these two shitas that we just saw of Rav Papa and Rav Huna Bar Rav Yoshua. One saying that the blood is going to be going into the amma, which is it's garbage, and the other is that it's going to be poured onto the yesod, which is the shita of Rav Papa. So it says the Gemara, how do we understand these psukim? So minayin lechatas shekibel dama be'arba kosos. Let's say there was a korban chatas, and the Kabbalah Saddam, they only fit in 4 cups. They didn't fit in 1 cup. He didn't have a huge jug. He had 4 Dixie cups. So he collected the dama nefesh in 4 cups. Good. So how do we know that if he collects it in 4 cups, the nasan mizeh achas shekula nishbachim liyisod, and he took a little bit of blood out of each of the cups, that all of them are considered shirayim, and all of them get dumped by the yisod of the mizbeach, but they're not garbage; they're halachic shirayim. Talmud lomar ves kol dama yishboch. That's from the pasuk of ves kol dama yishboch. Yachol afilu nasan arba matanos me'achas mehen. Maybe we would have assumed that if I gave all of the matanos from 1 cup, all the other cups would also be considered shirayim. Talmud lomar, no. This is Rav Papa's shita, quoted, not quoted here. This is a brisa, but it's listed in a brisa as a shita, and that's the shita where all of the blood that was untouched ends up being dumped in the garbage. It gets dumped in the amma, in the aqueduct. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Shimon, Omer, no. How do we learn these two psukim? Minayin lechatot shekibel dama be'arba kosos v'nosan arba matanos me'echad me'an shekulan nishbachin liyasod. Let's say I have 4 cups of the dama nefesh. I only use 1 of the cups for the avoda. The other 3 cups were untouched. Here in this brisa, it seems to be, where do they get poured? Into the yesod, namely that they're shirayim, even if they're untouched, not like the first sheets on the brisa. Talmud lomar ves kol dama yishboch. Oh, very good. There's only one problem. We started this brisa with 2 psukim, and Rebbe Lazar only used 1 of the psukim. Well, the Rebbe Lazar, Rebbe Shimon, it's great if you have your shita, but you have to answer up on the following question. Haksi v'estamo yishboch. You only used pasuk number 2. What about pasuk number 1? So it says the Gemara, don't worry. Amar Ravashi lemiute shirayim shebetzavar behema. It teaches us a side din about the blood that's in the neck of an animal. Fine. But the point is that this is exactly our machlokes, Rav Papa and Rav Huna Bar Rav Yoshua. What is the machlokes? The machlokes is as follows, just to review. The machlokes is, if we have a mixture of blood, does that blood get to be considered, we have 3 cups, I should say. We have par, seir, and mixed. We did the par, we did our up 1 and down 7, done. We did the seir, up 1, down 7, done. What do we do with the last cup? Is it shirayim or is it dachui? Is it considered halachically leftovers and needs to be poured on the yesod, or is it halachically a 0 and can be flushed into the amma? So that is a machlokes, Rav Papa and Rav Elazar Bar Rav Yoshua. No, Rav Huna Bar Rav Yoshua, and that's also machlokes in this brisa. That brings us to the 2 dots, 8 lines from the bottom of the page, Nun Zayin Amud Beis. Says the Gemara, Ira dam hapar l'soch dam haseir. We said that after he finished with all of his zrikos, the Kohen would pour one into the other and then stack the 2 containers together. So he went into the Beis HaMikdash with 1. He came back into the Kodesh. He went into the Beis HaMikdash with 1, the other was sitting here. And then he came here, he took this one and went into the Beis HaMikdash and did the seir. Then he came here, he's like, all right, let's mix them together and stack the cups. That's what our Mishnah wrote, that's what he's supposed to do. So then says the Gemara, that's what he's supposed to do. And Tnan, Keman Damar Ma'arvin Lakranos. It seems to be from our Mishnah that what we would do with that blood is that it gets poured on the kranos of the Mizbeach, on the top of the Mizbeach. If you look on an aerial view, you'd see that there were 4 1-by-1 amas on each of the corners of the Mizbeach. That's where this blood would have been poured. This blood that was mixed into this container, because we already did all of the zrikos. All the previous shilas we were asking was before the zrikos, what do we do? This shaila is after all the zrikos were done. So it's not. It seems that we have a mishnah, Keman Damar Me'arvin Lakranos. the Itmar Reb Yoshia v'Reb Yonasan. Normally, almost always, this is a rare exception in Shas, where the word Itmar is not talking about Amoraim. Extremely rare exception. If you have the Tosfos Yeshanim, if you have the Oz V'Hadar, on the inner margin is the Oz V'Hadar's commentary that he adds here of the Tosfos Yeshanim. And if you look down there, about halfway down in that commentary, I'll just read it clearly for those who don't have it. Dibur Hamaschel de Itmar Rav Yoshia v'Rav Yonasan. V'afal pi shetanoim heim. Even though they're Tanaim, they're not Amoraim. Why does it say the Itmar? Ka'amar belashon memra. We have the language of the memra, a language of Itmar. Why? V'nira shahayu Tanaim achronim. They were very late Tanaim. Timo Reb Chia v'Reb Shimon b'Rebbe. Like Reb Chia, who was a very, very early Amora / late Tana. So that's the approach of the Tosfos Yeshanim. Other Meforshim say no. The reason why it was codified this way is because there was really no clarity on it. The machlokas kept continuing about this. So let's learn about what this machlokas was. So the Itmar, even though they are Tanoim, the Itmar, it says the machlokas Rabbi Yoshua and Rabbi Yonasan, we don't know yet who says what. Chad Amar Me'arvin, that the blood is mixed. V'chad Amar Ein Me'arvin, not like our Mishnah, that the blood is not mixed. And Tistayim, we can probably conclude that Rabbi Yoshia, it was the Rabbi Yoshia who, the Amar Me'arvin, that Rabbi Yoshia was of the opinion that when the Kohen Gadol finished his final set of zrikos, that he mixed up all of the bloods. How do we know that? How do we know that Rabbi Yoshia was the one who was of the opinion that the blood should be mixed? The Amar, because he said, the Amar afal gav the loksiv yachtav keman dechsiv yachtav dami. That even though it doesn't say the word yachtav, it's as if it does say yachtav. This isn't a random comment. Rashi be'arichus here, toward the bottom, speaks about the pasuk of ish tasher kalel asaviv vesimo. And he quotes the whole drasha there. And basically the point is that sometimes even when it doesn't say yachtav, it means yachtav. We're not going to go into that now. But that's one approach to show how Rav Yoshia is of the opinion in our Gemara that even though it doesn't explicitly state to be ma'ariv them in the psukim, it is implied. Says the Gemara, no, we don't have to conclude that Rav Yoshia is the one who says ma'arvin. Because really what it could be is afilu tema Rav Yonasan. Really, maybe even Rav Yonasan was of the opinion that it was ma'arvin. Lav dafka that it's Rav Yoshia. It says the Gemara, shiny hachad d'chsiv achas. Maybe over here it's different. The pasuk says achas, that they really should be unified. They really should be mixed into one. Tanya says the Gemara, de lo kishnuya. So we have a brisa that is not like this most recent approach. Namely, we have a brisa that is not like the assumption that Rav Yonasan is the one who says that they are merged together, that they are ma'arvin. What does the brisa say? 2 lines from the bottom of the Zayin and Beis. You take the 2 of these bloods together. Black on white. This brisa says explicitly that Rav Yoshia was the one who says, like our Mishnah, and maybe he's the author of our Mishnah, that the 2 bloods are merged together into one. Top of Nun Ches Mud Aleph, Rav Yonasan, still within this brisa. Rav Yonasan Omer, no, mizeh bifnei atzmo, umizeh bifnei atzmo. The blood of the seir stays in its own container, and the blood of the par stays in its own container. Amar lo, Rav Yoshia, he says, v'halo kvar nemar achas. He says, what are you talking about? It says that it's all one. So Amar lo, Rav Yoshia says to him, they should. Oh, sorry, hold on 1 second, lost my place here. Here you go. Amar lo Rav Yoshia, v'halo kvar nemar achas. You should have them all combined. The pasuk says achas. So Amar lo Rav Yonasan, you learned the pasuk wrong. V'halo kvar nemar midama par midama seir. We also have another pasuk that says that they were separated. Dama par and dama seir were in their own distinct containers. Why then, if Rav Yonasan is right, that the pasuk says midama par midama seir, and that means that we don't mix them, they stay dama par and dama seir without mixing them, then how does he learn the word achas? Lomar lach achas v'lo shtayim midama par. That you shouldn't have 2 containers of the dama par, and achas v'lo shtayim midama seir. You shouldn't have 2 containers of the dama seir. And then there's another brisa, Tanya Idach. What is this brisa, right? This person learns that this brisa, so far nameless, seems to learn like Rav Yoshia, because he says that even though the pasuk says that they should still be mixed. Ata omer shimu uravim zebazeh o einu elam mizeh bifnei atzmo. How do we learn this pasuk? Talmud Omer achas, to teach us one, that they should be combined together, and that is v'stama k'Rav Yoshia. So therefore, the Gemara concludes that yes, that we have a machlokas as to whether or not we're ma'arev the blood of the seir and the blood of the par. Machlokas in our Gemara between Rav Yoshia and Rav Yonasan. The Gemara assumes, like the opinion in the Gemara, that when we have a machlokas between them, that Rav Yoshia is the one who actually holds that it does get mixed. That is the author of our Mishnah. We will stop right here. Tomorrow night in Yirtzeh Hashem, we will learn Daf Nun Ches. A reminder, Nun Ches, the Amud Beis, is pretty wide. but we'll get through it for sure. Reminder that on Thursday, there's no live shiur, but it will be pre-recorded and posted before the time we learn. Wishing you all a beautiful night.